Welcome to the very first episode of Your Life is the Medicine. I'm Sonny Miles. I'm so excited that you're here. I'm excited to begin this journey. This has been something I have been dreaming into for a while, and it's something that's hard. And I'm so excited to begin the journey and to learn and to share and to grow with you. Today, I really want to start by telling you what your life is the medicine means to me. I'm a physician. I have a lot of conventional medical training. I'm board certified in internal medicine, hospice and palliative medicine, and integrative medicine. And I've been in practice as a physician for over a decade, both as an internist and as a palliative care physician and as an integrative medicine physician. And what I have learned along the way, primarily from my own healing journey, but also listening and having the honor of hearing the stories of my patients and the people that I've worked with, is that healing isn't what happens in the hospital or the clinic room. And while that is so important, especially when someone has an acute illness, healing happens in the quiet choices that we make in our life every day. Healing happens as we choose whether to do something that cares for ourselves or whether we choose to forego our own needs and show up for other people instead. And healing and medicine has so many layers. And what I want to explore in this podcast is not only the more obvious layers, like what do we eat? How do we move or exercise? What kinds of treatments help us feel better? But the subtle layers, the subtle ways that we move through the world, the subtle ways that we honor ourselves or we prioritize ourselves, the way that we make ourselves the center of our lives, or the way that we put ourselves on the edges and put other people first. Those are the choices that we make a million times a day that impact profoundly our health and well-being. And they're the choices that we sometimes are even unconscious that we're making, or choices that we don't always realize are true choices. And the choices that take a lot more work sometimes to figure out how to do differently, but they can profoundly alter how we feel, how we show up in our lives, and how we care for ourselves. So, your life is the medicine really, to me, speaks of what a healing journey is. And I think often we think about healing as being a linear and a linear journey with a destination, right? We're going to start on this healing journey and we're going to take all of these steps forward, and eventually we'll arrive at healed or at healthy. And it doesn't work like that. There is no destination. There are many stops along the way, but we're never truly healed. We are never arriving at healthy. It is a moment to moment, day by day, year by year, ebb and flow and relationship with ourselves and our bodies and our spirits and what we need. And so when we are looking at health or healing as a destination, we don't get there, and we also miss perhaps the journey. And the healing journey for most people is very winding, and sometimes we go backwards and then forward. It is all over the place, and it is or can be a really beautiful experience of learning about ourselves, honoring our soul's path in this life, and really meeting our bodies where they are. And our bodies' needs change season to season. And whether that's like your yearly seasons of spring, summer, fall, and winter, but also the seasons of our lives, like the more stressful seasons, the the calmer seasons. For women, different hormonal seasons of our lives, like our needs change. And so health and healing is meeting those needs in the moment, day by day, season by season. And with each season, deepening our relationship with ourselves and understanding what we need. And going back to those layers, as we move through a healing journey, we heal layers and layers. And so we may have something that we worked on in some way, whether it's physically, emotionally, spiritually, and we heal it. And then it shows up again in a slightly different way. And we have to heal the next layer. We have to understand what that next layer is teaching us or telling us about what our body needs and wants. And so it is this beautiful, circuitous, winding journey. And for me, the labyrinth is really a metaphor of a healing journey. And in my practice, I call my healing journey within, and it's based upon the labyrinth, or the metaphor of the labyrinth, that the journey of healing really is entering a calling where you are asked to go within, you are asked to enter this labyrinth or this journey. And as you go in, you have to release and receive. You release what isn't working, you receive wisdom, you receive healing, you receive understanding about where you are in your life and what your body needs. And then you begin to integrate it and come back into the world to show up in a little bit different way. And then oftentimes we have to do it all over again. And so that to me is what the healing journey looks like. And it is beautiful, and it can be incredibly painful too. And I would also say the other point for me that is really important is that the only person that can really heal you is you. And of course, it is incredibly important to have a team of people that you trust that help you as you walk your own healing journey. But so often are looking for the experts to tell us how to heal ourselves, and they can offer their wisdom and their expertise and their information, but really it is up to us to decide if that information is correct for us and how we utilize it. I did a training program called the Whole Health Medical Institute with Dr. Lissa Rankin, who is a well-known physician, author, and she has these paradoxes of healing that she talks about. And the one that's coming to mind is that you have to heal yourself, and yet you can't do it alone. And so it is this process of tuning into your own wisdom and going within to navigate your healing journey. And you have to have people to help you. You have to have a team in general. And that team may be friends or family. That team may be a therapist. That team may be a shamanic practitioner, an acupuncturist, maybe any number of people. And I'll share as an example, I would say that my own team of healers right now at this point in my life is therapists, coaches, acupuncturists, a craniosacral therapist, or a practitioner, a chiropractor. And I think that's it at the moment. But I've worked with other people at other points, and even the team that I have now, people on the team have changed over time, right? And so what was helpful for me at one point has changed, and I use different healers as I've gone on my own journey. And what was helpful at one point is not what I need now. And so that is a team of healers. And so I'm getting off track here of like what your life is the medicine. I'm talking more about my own interests or my own understanding of the healing journey, but that is part of it. So healing is circuitous. It is a journey. It is not a destination. We have to heal ourselves. We need a team of people in our lives to help us heal ourselves. Only we can know who the right team is and what the right people are. And the healing is in the everyday choices. And I will share a little bit of my own journey to try to help illustrate this. So, I have always been fascinated by the body and the body's ability to heal. I sort of grew up in the natural health world. My mom owned a natural skincare company, and she went back to school and became an acupuncturist when I was in high school. And so my introduction really to healing was through through the lens of the natural health, natural wellness world, and through her own journey of acupuncture school. And I was I I was ravenous for information about healing, and I loved to read, and I had some really incredible experiences reading, like, Coyote Medicine by Dr. Louis Malmadrona, and talking about he's a physician who also practices more indigenous or traditional medicine and ceremony, and this book, The Scalpel and the Silver Bear, where she also combines shamanic work with conventional medicine. And so this is really, like, that was my calling, was to figure out how I bridge those worlds. And I didn't know, and I went to college. I was very heavily involved in sort of science. I went to MIT. I have a degree in brain and cognitive sciences, and part of what was encouraged as a student at MIT was to do research. And so I worked in a couple of different labs doing really basic science research and some cognitive testing. And then as I was coming to the end of that chapter of my life, I really just I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know how to move forward. And so my own intuitive knowing was that I needed to pause. And I also wanted to do something that was giving back or of service. And so I went to Paraguay and was a Peace Corps volunteer. And that really gave me an opportunity well, it gave me so many things, but it gave me an opportunity to pause and to integrate sort of the last, 4+ years of my life, and really to understand more what I wanted to move forward with in my life. And the one of the beautiful things about living in Paraguay was that natural medicine or traditional medicine was such a part of the community. Most people had some knowledge of the medicinal properties of plants. And so when someone was sick or someone had a stomach ache or whatever was going on, people would use, common herbs. Like, you'd go out in the yard or the forest or the field and create this, tea or drink of herbs to try to help restore balance to the body. And I also, saw that some of the traditional healing and faith healing that happened in Paraguay, and often that's where people would go first before seeking conventional medical care, in part because conventional medical care was expensive and not as accessible. And it was sort of during this time that I decided to become a physician. And I really had to laugh at myself because I took my physiology book to Paraguay with me, like, of the few things I could take. And not initially, but on one of my trips home, when I went back, I took my book on human physiology, and I really missed learning. And so that's where I made the decision to pursue medicine. And in my mind, it was a place I could get the absolute best education possible on healing. Now, that's not quite what it is, but that's what I decided to do. When I went to UCSF, I did medical school at UCSF, and I did internal medicine residency at UCSF. And it was an incredible, incredible place. And I did not love medical school. I loved residency, despite how challenging it was, despite the work hours. I just felt like I was on my path. I was doing the right thing. I was learning. I was getting to take care of other people and try to help other people. And I was surrounded by incredible, incredible people in my residency program. And so that like inner knowing, that inner wisdom that I was in the right place and doing what I wanted to do, that got me through the nights without sleep, the really difficult moments. And then when I finished, I went and became a hospitalist. And so it was again that moment of like, I'm not really sure what I want to do, but this is what I want to do next. And a hospitalist is an usually an internal medicine doctor, can be many other types of physicians, but in my case, internal medicine that took care of people sick enough to be hospitalized. I became a hospitalist for Indian Health Services. So as a hospitalist, I only took care of people sick enough to be in the hospital. And I pretty quickly became burnt out. I worked really hard and work really hard for 8 days, and then I'd have 6 days off in general. And I wore myself out. And as much as I loved getting to try to take care of people, it was very clear that my ability to really help them in the hospital was very limited because they would come into the hospital and we would get them better or patch them up. And then they would go home to the same way of living, to the same, nutrition, to the same lack of access to many services. And they would come back. And so I knew that that wasn't the medicine for me long term. And so partly I returned to my earlier interests to do integrative medicine, and I started the Andrew Weil Integrative Medicine Fellowship. And I also decided that really taking care of people at end of life was important to me. And what really motivated me to do the hospice and palliative medicine training was this idea of being a truth teller. And so many times in the hospital, I witnessed over and over people getting care, especially at near the end of their life or in their elder years in an intensive care unit that they thought would return them to a previous level of health. And as a physician, I knew that that was unlikely. And so for me, it really became the desire to have honest conversations with people about what medical care could and couldn't provide so that they could make their own decisions about their lives. And so that's how I got all the training that I got. And then as I practiced, again, I became burnt out. And I switched jobs and worked in the cancer center doing palliative care. And I again became burnt out. And it really was understanding that the system and being in the system was not a place that I could be healthy. I was working in a way where I was giving so much of me that I didn't have anything left at the end of the day. And I had 2 little kids when I was working in the cancer center. My kids were about 1 to 2 and then 4. And I would work really hard and give of myself. And then at the end of the day, all I wanted to do was eat comfort food and curl up. And I was spending my days talking to people about what mattered in their life, people who were often dying or who were very ill with cancer, and talking to them about if life is short, what matters most, and how do we try to make that happen. And yet, I was surviving my life. I wasn't really living it. I didn't feel vibrant. I felt like I was in survival. I felt like I was just getting through one day to the next and hoping for those days off. And I was going to the chiropractor and I was going to the acupuncturist and I was doing all of the things. And those things helped me feel better and helped me maintain what I was doing, but they never got me to well. They did not get me to vibrant. And I didn't get to vibrant and alive until I left that way of living, until I reinvented my life. And that's still a journey. I'm still figuring that out. But that journey looked like leaving full-time medicine, figuring out how I could make money to support my family. And so a little bit of that is still working part-time in the system and doing palliative care. And it meant doing a lot of work to unlearn the ways that I was sacrificing my own health and well-being to serve others and learning to prioritize my own health and well-being better. And it was having space and time and energy so that exercising and movement became much easier to do and more enjoyable. And same thing with food. It was having enough energy that at the end of the day, I didn't just want to go get takeout. I wanted at least more of the time, because I still often want to just do takeout, but more of the time wanting to feed myself and my family in a way that's truly nourishing. And that's what I mean by your life is the medicine. If you are in survival mode, if you are dragging yourself through your days, if you are giving to everyone else and only giving yourself what's left, we can't be healthy and vibrant and alive and beautiful. Like, we have to prioritize ourselves, and we have to create a life that allows us to meet our needs. We have to create a life that aligns with our passions. We have to create a life that makes space for joy and pleasure. And we have to create a life where we can feel the pain and the grief that comes along with moments in life. And we know how to walk with those so that we can get back to the joy and the pleasure. We are incredibly resilient when we have the tools and the space and the resources to take care of ourselves, to meet our own needs and meet the challenges that life throws at us. So that's what Your Life is the Medicine is about. It's how we begin to create a life that is beautiful and expansive and healthy and meets our needs, including the need to grieve and to move through pain and to move through difficulty. So I invite you, as we end this first episode, to just feel into this idea that your life is the most potent, powerful medicine. To think about what in your life is serving, what in your life lights you up, what in your life feels expansive, and what in your life feels like you're just surviving. What in your life do you have to drag yourself through? What in your life are you beating yourself up for? And just beginning to notice what comes to mind, because often something will come to mind and then we'll try to talk ourselves in or out of that. But just noticing what pops into your mind in the first place, and then noticing how that feels in your body. And next time, we're going to talk a little bit more about the wisdom of our bodies and how we connect to that wisdom and can use that wisdom day in and day out to help us guide our lives. So thank you so much for being here, and I look forward to talking to you next time.